So a quick look at some of the positives and negatives of both phones. So first up, let's have a look at the OnePlus 6 here. It does sport a brand new fingerprint sensor, a bit of a cutting edge technology. It's under the screen, it's on the front again, so yeah, a nice little touch there. It does have an up-to-date and versatile operating system. It is based on Android Pie with their Oxygen OS sitting on top. It supports fast charging, it has a sleek and premium design, great performance and great battery life. However, it does suffer in certain places, so they do have a feature called Nightscape. We will get onto that a little bit later, but it does need a little bit of work, which you're going to see. It is another one that has suffered the headphone jack issue, and it has lost the headphone jack. Although I said that the fingerprint sensor is an awesome positive, it does need a little refinement there as well. It's a little bit touch and go at times with the implementation of it, and I will say this thing does suffer a little bit with some audio capabilities as well. Moving on to the Pixel, and yes, this is the Pixel 2 XL. It's not the latest one, but it is last year's model. It does support the stock Android, so you have got Android Pie on this thing, and it is always getting the latest updates. Supports fast charging as well. It has a fantastic camera, supported and backed by Google's latest AI technologies, and it does have some nice Pixel-only touches in there as well, where they have tweaked it just for the Pixel range. However, as negatives, it doesn't support wireless charging. You would have thought a flagship phone of its price would support wireless charging. The chins, top and bottom of this thing are still huge. I have this real problem with the Pixel 3 XL with the huge notch that it's got on it, which is why I've stuck with the Pixel 2 XL. But still, a flagship of these days, you really want to see that infinity glass going around. And the price is quite high actually for this sort of feature set. Bearing in mind, actually the OnePlus 6T is nearly half its price, and you're getting so much for the OnePlus 6T in line with the Pixel 2 XL. So from a price point of view, it's got to be a disadvantage to the Pixel being such a high price when there are other phones on the market like the OnePlus that can now do just as much, give good quality for half of its price. Anyway, let's get into this a little bit more. First up, let's look at the specs. So first up, the OnePlus 6T does have the latest Snapdragon 845 processor, and as a base comes with 6GB RAM. That compared to the Pixel 2 XL with a Snapdragon 835 processor and a standard of 4GB RAM. Both support fast charge. Now, as the Pixel 2 XL is last year's model, you would expect it to suffer in the hardware spec, slightly lower than the OnePlus. However, if we were to look at the latest Pixel, the Pixel 3 XL, it still doesn't stack up against the specs of the OnePlus 6 base model. They may match in processors, both using the 845 Snapdragon, but the OnePlus entry model contains more RAM and more built-in storage for nearly half the price of the Pixel. Pricing aside, both of these phones are comparable, although personally I would have to say that the OnePlus applying the Oxygen OS on top of Android Pie does optimise it just that little bit extra to the stock Android and gives you just enough to remain close to stock, but gives you that extra little bit of battery smooth performance, a little bit of extra features that the Android Pie is lacking. As mentioned already, both of these phones are running Android Pie, the latest version of Android. However, Pixel sticks to stock Android, OnePlus applies Oxygen OS to this phone, which is still close to stock, with some added performance tweaks and features, although that's not without losing some of the stock Android features in the process, like always on display, digital wellbeing, app actions, and auto rotate. Then again, Oxygen OS does give us a step further with some of the features that better support things like their notch and some of the navigation gestures that take it more close to the way Apple are taking their gestures. These are all minor points, but I have found you miss them once you go to a phone without them. Let's have a look at the battery life. The OnePlus 6T now contains a 3700 mAh battery, whereas the Pixel 2 XL only contains a 3500 mAh battery. The battery life of these phones is very similar, with OnePlus having to support a slightly larger screen and hardware than the Pixel. The average battery life on both though is really good. A full day's battery is easily achievable with medium use out of them. Unlike the Pixel 2 XL, the OnePlus is an all-glass design, which begs the question, why the hell does it not support wireless charging? One could only speculate that this is to keep costs down, so let's hope that the OnePlus 7 range starts supporting wireless charging. Although the Pixel 2 XL doesn't also support it, which is a real shame for that huge price you pay for it, the Pixel 3 XL does now have all-glass design and wireless charging. When it comes to biometrics, both of these phones are well equipped. However, the OnePlus 6T does it with a bit more pizzazz with the under-glass fingerprint scanner. Personally, I find the location and speed of the Pixel sensor, which is on the back of the phone, to be slightly better and a little bit more convenient at times, but no one could argue that the OnePlus sensor is a pretty funky bit of technology. I would note though that certain security features are not all available through some applications. For example, if you use a banking app that uses your fingerprint as authentication, on the Pixel it does allow it, however the same application on the OnePlus doesn't seem to have that feature brought through yet. No doubt over time they will bring an update for the sensor, but it is something to note that at the moment some of them aren't supporting it. OnePlus also has the additional feature of the RGB face unlock using the front-facing camera. This is absolutely lightning fast, to the point at which it's actually impossible to read any notification on the screen as it's too busily unlocking it for you. I actually find quite often when I'm actually trying to use the biometric, the Face ID has already unlocked the phone for me. It is that fast. It is really impressive. Camera hardware on the OnePlus 6T is actually identical to the OnePlus 6. It has two cameras on the back, 16 and 20 megapixel cameras, coming in with a wide angle and an f1.7 aperture. Also supporting optical image stabilization, allowing you to get that really crisp shot, and for your videos as well. There is also a 16 megapixel front-facing camera which is supporting electronic image stabilization. It is a promising hardware setup, albeit one we've seen before, begging the question, what is new on this camera? Well, OnePlus have focused on improving the HDR and the low light shooting capabilities of the new devices in the 6T, whilst also adding a handful of extra settings along the way. One addition is the auto nightscape detection, which automates the phone's more advanced low light photography mode when it detects that ambient light is hard to come by. The promise of industry-leading HDR shots is a bold claim, and naturally they are trying to live up to it. It certainly proves its worth in the right situations. I have noticed that the nightscape function, it brightens up cityscapes without any issue, but it does have issues with hard light sources. If they're in frame, such as lamps or street lights, really struggles to balance them out, and usually blowing them out to the brightest areas. It can also on occasions turn that ISO rating so high that you get loads of noise in the image as well. Having the two cameras on the back of the OnePlus, it does perform well, introducing that bokeh effect into the pictures, allowing the foreground to remain sharp whilst blurring the background. As it is two cameras, this effect can be adjusted and be seen real time on the screen. So the Pixel 2, however, uses Post AI to introduce the bokeh effect. And to be honest, it does a really good job. And when I say good job, I really mean a good job about it. You would be hard pressed to actually see where the AI has introduced the bokeh. Front facing is the same on both, however the Pixel once again can introduce the bokeh effect into one shot. One thing I did notice on the OnePlus is that the portrait selfie suffered an issue, and I have noticed it in other people's reviews, is the image is the wrong way round. there is a setting to actually flip the selfie shot. This is off by default, a very strange setting to have not enabled. Let's move on to the video part of this. So the OnePlus can film up to 4K at 60 frames a second, where the Pixel stops at 30 frames a second for 4K. You can get 60 frames a second by dropping it down to 1080p, but again, flagship phone at this price. Why oh why is the Pixel not doing 60 frames a second at 4K? I do not understand. So with the user experience, so whilst I was taking my test shots, it was a windy day, so shooting close images was also going to be a challenge. The OnePlus performed well and the results were good, as were the Pixels. However, I did find with the OnePlus I've spent far more time setting up the shot that I actually wanted than with the Pixel 2 XL. It was a simple point and shoot. So which one is the winner when it comes to the camera? For me, actually, Pixel 2 XL does stand out as the better camera here, and one I keep reaching out for when I want to take a photo. Don't get me wrong, the OnePlus 6T is a fantastic phone and a fantastic camera, and something I would be happy to continue using if I hadn't already owned a Pixel 2 XL and witnessed its capabilities as well. The OnePlus camera is close to the Pixel. Pixel does have that little extra edge, but the fact that the OnePlus 6T is half the price of the Pixel 2 XL makes this phone a really compelling phone to own. If I'd not owned the Pixel previously, I would have been completely satisfied with the performance of the OnePlus. However, for me, the Pixel 2 XL is the winner in this. If it was purely based on price, it would be OnePlus all the way for me. Anyway guys, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed my little review of the OnePlus 6T when compared against the Pixel 2 XL. Please remember, subscribe and hit that thumbs up if you like what you're hearing. Raise any comments you'd like to in the comments section. I've been Colin Primore and this is iCTO. We'll see you on the next one.